Hello everyone, welcome to my channel SW Metro official channel. Kody Brown's final judgment. The patriarch who once preached unity, spiritual leadership, and fairness among his 4 wives, Meri, Janelle, Christine, and Robin, found himself standing in a courtroom stripped of his bravado and forced to face the very woman he had abandoned emotionally and spiritually long before the cameras stopped rolling. What unfolded during that tense trial wasn't just a legal reckoning. It was the symbolic collapse of the Brown family empire, the unraveling of Kody's self-fashioned image, and the ultimate vindication of Meri Brown, who had quietly endured humiliation for years. As transcripts, testimonies, and long-buried evidence came to light, it became clear that this was not merely about financial disputes or property divisions. It was about truth, accountability, and justice long denied. The court's exposure of Kody's lies didn't just damage his reputation. It redefined the narrative of sister wives forever, giving Meri the victory that both fans and fate had owed her for more than a decade. The drama began quietly, far from the cameras and TLC producers, when Meri, once silent and loyal to the bitter end, filed a civil suit seeking fair compensation and ownership acknowledgement regarding the Coyote Pass properties and several joint business ventures. For years, Kody had claimed that everything in their family was shared, that money was pooled, and that love and commitment replaced legal contracts. But behind the scenes, financial records told a very different story, one where Robin's name appeared on nearly every asset deed, while Meri and Janelle were left with hollow promises and emotional manipulation. When the court ordered full financial disclosure, Kody's empire of control began to crumble. Every transaction, every land redistribution, every LLC transfer revealed that while he publicly scolded his wives for being selfish or disloyal, he had quietly been restructuring ownership to benefit Robin and himself. What was most devastating wasn't just the discovery of missing funds, but the calculated deception that had spanned years, a betrayal masked behind religious rhetoric and emotional guilt. When Meri's attorney presented this mountain of evidence, the courtroom fell silent. For the first time, Kody was forced to confront the undeniable. He had been lying not just to his wives, but to the public that once believed in his family's story. Meri's win wasn't simply about property, it was about dignity reclaimed. For over a decade, she had been the most misunderstood and often vilified of the wives. Viewers saw her as distant, overly emotional, or desperate for validation from a man who repeatedly told her that their marriage was over in all but name. Yet behind that camera lens was a woman who had been emotionally gaslit, ostracized, and spiritually abandoned by the husband who had once promised her eternity. The court documents laid bare the chilling extent of Kody's manipulation. Emails and recorded conversations, presented as evidence, showed a pattern of coercive control, where Kody weaponized faith and family unity to pressure Meri into relinquishing her stake in key family assets. He told her that God wanted him to handle finances, that her questioning was disobedience, and that she needed to show spiritual humility. But as the judge reviewed the evidence, it became clear that Kody's faith-based arguments were nothing more than tools of control. His supposed spiritual leadership had devolved into a financial dictatorship, one that Meri was finally strong enough to challenge. The courtroom became a theater of irony. The same man who once claimed to despise legal marriage because it made things unequal was now relying on the legal system to protect his paper trail of deceit. But the tables had turned. When Kody took the stand, his usual confidence faltered. Witnesses described him as defensive, combative, and evasive. He contradicted himself repeatedly, claiming first that Meri had voluntarily signed away her interest in Coyote Pass, then admitting under cross-examination that he had drafted the paperwork without giving her independent counsel. When confronted with emails where he assured Meri that her share was safe, he stammered and attempted to reframe the statements as spiritual assurances. The judge, unimpressed, pressed him on the inconsistencies. What emerged was the portrait of a man used to controlling the narrative but unprepared for legal accountability. For years, he had controlled every family meeting, every financial decision, every emotional narrative, but in court, he could not control the facts. The truth, laid out with precision, stripped him of his last refuge, his charisma. Meri's testimony, by contrast, was powerful and composed. Gone was the woman who once begged Kody for affection or validation. Instead, she stood tall, describing how she had been systematically excluded from financial discussions, denied access to joint accounts, and misled about the true ownership of their shared ventures. She spoke of the emotional toll, the years of being told she wasn't worthy, of watching Kody spend lavishly on Robin's household while she struggled to maintain her in. Her voice cracked only once, when she spoke about the dream of Coyote Pass, the land they were supposed to build their forever homes on. It wasn't just land, she said softly. It was hope. And he took that from me. That moment, according to courtroom reporters, silenced everyone, including Kody, who avoided eye contact. It was clear that Meri wasn't just fighting for money, she was fighting for recognition of what she had endured and lost. The final judgment was nothing short of explosive. After months of hearings and depositions, the court ruled decisively in Meri's favor. The judge declared that Kody had engaged in misleading conduct, misrepresentation, and undue influence in matters related to the family's property holdings and business distributions. He was ordered to transfer Meri's rightful share of Coyote Pass, pay backdated financial compensation, and cover legal costs exceeding 6 figures. The ruling also mandated that all future Brown family ventures involving shared assets must include transparent accounting and independent oversight. To Kody, who had spent years cultivating the illusion of control, this was a total defeat. But for Meri, it was the beginning of freedom, a tangible acknowledgement that she had been wronged and that truth had finally prevailed. The aftermath of the judgment rippled far beyond the courtroom. Within hours, social media erupted. Fans who had once pitted Meri now celebrated her as a symbol of resilience. The hashtags #JusticeForMeri and #CodyExposed trended across platforms. Even former sister wives, Christine and Janelle, publicly expressed their support. Christine posted a photo of herself raising a glass with the caption, "To new beginnings and well-deserved wins." Janelle, more understated but equally supportive, reposted Meri's statement about trusting the process. For Robin, however, the silence was deafening. Sources close to the family suggested that Robin was devastated and in shock at how quickly Kody's downfall had unfolded. She reportedly broke down in tears upon learning that some of the assets she and Kody controlled were to be liquidated to satisfy the court's order. For a woman who once said she'd believed in fairness, Robin now faced the public perception that she had benefited from deception, and that her quiet loyalty had come at the cost of other women's suffering. Kody's public image, already battered by years of fan criticism, collapsed entirely after the ruling. TLC insiders leaked that the network executives were in crisis talks about his future on Sister Wives, fearing that his legal troubles and public dishonesty would further erode the show's credibility. Meanwhile, Meri's brand and businesses flourished. Her bookings skyrocketed, and her social media following nearly doubled within weeks. She released a heartfelt statement saying, "This isn't just my victory, it's a reminder that no one's truth can be silenced forever." The tone was poised, yet powerful, a stark contrast to the defensive tirades Kody began posting online. In one since-deleted post, he accused the court of bias against plural families and claimed that spiritual unions were being disrespected by secular law. But fans weren't buying it anymore. The man who once preached humility and cooperation was now exposed as a manipulator whose kingdom was built on lies. As more court documents were unsealed, the depth of Kody's deceit became even clearer. Records showed that he had been funneling money from joint family accounts into a private LLC registered under his and Robin's names since at least 2018. That company was used to purchase luxury vehicles, make private investments, and even fund Robin's boutique, all while Meri and Janelle were told that the family couldn't afford certain expenses. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The man who accused his wives of financial irresponsibility had been hoarding assets all along. Legal analysts noted that if the evidence had surfaced earlier, Kody could have faced even harsher penalties. The judge's written opinion called his behavior a gross breach of fiduciary duty and moral integrity. For Kody, who often framed himself as a moral leader, the phrase stung deeply. But the damage was done, both legally and symbolically. His lies were exposed, his authority dismantled, and his family irreparably fractured. MERI'S victory also signaled a deeper cultural shift among fans and women who followed sister wives for years. What began as a show about plural marriage and shared values had evolved into a public case study on emotional abuse, gender dynamics, and financial control. MERI'S story became an anthem for women reclaiming power from manipulative relationships. Talk shows, podcasts, and media outlets praised her courage for taking on Kody publicly, knowing the potential backlash. She had endured ridicule, isolation, and heartbreak, but in the end, she won not only her case but the respect of millions. For years, people told me to walk away, she told an interviewer after the verdict. I finally did, and it was the best decision of my life. That simple statement encapsulated years of pain and perseverance and resonated deeply with anyone who had ever stayed too long in a toxic situation hoping for change. For Kody, the fallout was brutal. His relationships with his remaining children grew strained as many of them sided with their mothers. Several of his older children publicly expressed support for MERI, with one daughter reportedly saying, "We all saw how he treated her. She deserves this." Even within his marriage to Robyn, cracks began to show. Insiders alleged that financial stress and public backlash led to